Quote, "The Akashic Records exist in a spiritual dimension that acts as an etheric computer storage program, storing the knowledge and experience of every soul, past and present," unquote, Dolores Cannon. The Akashic Records sounds esoteric, ancient, and mystical. The term was first used by a theosophist in the late 19th century, Rudolf Steiner, Madame Blavatsky, and Edgar Cayce all spoke about this etheric record, and so its roots are definitely esoteric and a little ancient. What are the Akashic Records? The Akashic Records are the subtle energetic imprint of everything that has ever been, is, and will be. The Akashic Records are like a memory bank. They hold the data of every thought, feeling, word, and action you've ever expressed in this lifetime and all others. The word Akashic is derived from the Sanskrit word Akasha, which means sky or ether. The Akashic Records have also been referred to as the Book of Life, the Mind of God, and the Universal Library. How do you access the Akashic Records? Anyone can access the Akashic Records through pure intention and an open heart, and the ability to come into an expanded, elevated state of consciousness. It takes practice to connect, and even more practice to maintain a sense of openness and trust, and to let go of the need to filter and analyze what comes through. What can one ask the Akashic Records? You can ask anything you desire, whether it's related to relationships, career, life path, spiritual gifts, big decisions and challenges, past lives, spirit guides, starseed connections, and more. There is no right or wrong question. An Akashic Record reading is a safe space to explore without judgment. But it's important to know that whatever is most relevant and of the highest service of your soul's evolution is what comes through during a reading. To actually ascend into the energetic field of the records, you must relieve human density and clear yourself out as much as possible. An opening prayer is a must. And I'm going to give you one now, and you can create your own, but this will give you a general idea of how you can create your own opening prayer. I ask the divine source to surround me in a circle of white light for protection and strength. May I be joined in my intention to expand my soul. I ask the Lord's masters, teachers, and loved ones of the records to allow me to open and read the records of me for this purpose. In the holiest of holies and in gratitude to the Lords of the Akashic Records, Amen, Aho, and so it is. Also, it's just as important to use a closing prayer as well. In deep gratitude, I thank the record keepers for all the information, wisdom, and healing provided to me in this reading. May everything I have received continue to help me for as long as it is needed. It is important to visualize the records and see the closing of a giant door and say, Amen, Aho, and so it is. Aho is a Native American word that means, yes, I agree and I understand, or I acknowledge. Join All right, let's get everybody on here. Sorry, guys, had to do it a little differently. Had some issues with StreamYard. Welcome to Andromeda 7, your celestial gateway, your channel for community support, help, friendship, love, knowledge, and being of value to others. And tonight we're talking about the Akashic Records. And we've done a lot of things in the past with like past lives and soul contracts and things like that. And so I got to talking with my guides, and they suggested talk about the Akashic Records. And so that's why we're here tonight. Thank you, Grandpa Brian, for being here. Dalibor Suki, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Teresa, my bestie, good to have you with us. Let's go ahead and say hello to everybody in chat. Deborah Sloan, glad you couldn't wait to see this show. That's awesome. Scotty Boy, a pleasure. How are you, my friend? Let's see. We also have Miss Chloe. Good to see you, Miss Chloe. How are things with you? Hope everything is good. Beloved Abstract Sip, good to see you. Good to see you. Looks like that's about it for the moment. Yeah. So anyway, here we are. So how was your vacation, Teresa? Did you have a good time, you and Brian? Your get together there? Was that
we really
wonderful or
did.
what?
Yeah, we
Good
enjoyed
time?
hanging out and seeing
Uh-huh.
everybody, and yeah,
That's quite the pad you got there, that cabin, Grandpa Brian. What a beautiful cabin and what a great place to spend your time.
Thank you. I really enjoy it here.
Yeah. Very
yeah,
hospitable, I heard.
his stepdad and his brothers, they and Brian all built it by their own hands some 26 years ago. It looks
Hmm.
brand new,
23
and
years ago.
every 23 years, and every piece of wood, every joist fits perfectly.
Hmm.
There's no flaws. It looks brand new, and it's like A-frame style inside. Lots of space, lots of open air, and just really nice. And that's not a little pond. He's got his own frickin' lake.
That's
Um,
cool.
it's really
He
cool.
has a
Yeah.
dog to play in it.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And
That's
the
so
dog knows how to open the bunkhouse door. It's on a
uh-huh.
slider. So the dog
Luna.
just takes its nose and
Mm-hmm.
lifts it open and moves it aside, and then raids your suitcase.
Ah, that's awesome. That's awesome.
She's she's a
Curious. Yep,
cool
curious.
dog. Cool dog.
Yeah.
And then we
Lucky
stayed at
Stone's joining
Brian's.
us. Hi,
Then
Lucky.
we, hey Lucky. Then we stayed at Brian's house for a couple nights too, so that was fun. And his mom. Oh my gosh! Now you can see where Brian gets a lot of those qualities and character from his mom.
Yeah,
And
that's
they look
cool.
alike. They look alike, and he's the masculine version of her, and she's tiny
Yeah.
and just the
Uh-huh.
sweetest, most spiritual woman. Very
That's
giving to her community, and I've really enjoyed the interaction with her and the hospitality of his whole family. So it was a lot of
wonderful.
fun. And Jim and Heather, all my relations, and Rev Charles, Rev Meg, Sophia at Camp Chesterfield. So
Mm-hmm.
it was quite a gathering. Quite a gathering.
Good. I'm glad you guys enjoyed yourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thanks for the pictures. Really, really gave me something. Yeah, it's a
Yeah.
beautiful place, gotta say.
That's awesome.
Well, we're going to be
Thank you.
uploading all that. Karen's out gold mining. She has her own private mines, and she's out mining and dealing with forest fires and having to relocate. So she would have been here tonight, but she's not established in a camp right now. They had to relocate. So she's working on it. So send her a lot of prayers and intents for success. But she's going to be uploading a lot of those photos to the website and video footage. And then Lori's working on something too. So we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome.
So,
Hey, Grumpy Stack. Good to see you.
happy
Boy.
birthday to Doug. Happy birthday to Stackamus. Happy birthday, dear Dougster. May you not wake up in a dumpster.
Hmm.
I'll keep my day job, Dougie. I'll keep my day job. Love you,
Awesome.
brother.
Yeah, I was just going to say I've seen some pictures of you on Facebook and handsome guy you are, no doubt about it. Complete
Mm-hmm.
transformation. Kudos to you, big time. Yep, most definitely. Right on.
He's
Well,
looking
we are
like
here.
he did back in his 30s.
Yeah, yeah. He's just transformed himself into a whole different person. It just goes to show you what you can do when you really, really want something badly and you're willing to do whatever it takes to get it. Talk
Yeah.
about manifesting. That's fantastic. So kudos to you, Grumpy Stack. Way to go. Yep.
Awesome. Yeah.
So, I do like to start with Dalibor and wondered what your understanding of the Akashic Records is. Seems to be some
Well, it's
variations on what people believe about it, but
well
what's your understanding? Mm-hmm.
the Akashic Records. It first came to my understanding in reading Jung, Carl Jung. He
Mm-hmm.
called it the collective unconscious, and
Ooh, I like that.
yeah, it's like a universal record of everything that's happened and
Mm-hmm.
everything that will happen. But because we have free will, the future is not necessarily set in stone, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
It's more
Because
it's more like mutable in that we can choose different paths. So, once we make a certain choice, that future changes,
mm-hmm.
and you have a different set of possibilities and a different set of Akashic records that are in that possible future. So,
Mm-hmm.
most people access these Akashic records on an unconscious level. And I would say that you have a lot of proof of that in like the so-called predictive programming that led up to 9/11, where allusions to that disaster and the symbolism associated with it, you could see that in books, movies, rap songs,
Mm-hmm.
um, uh,
There are people
images.
that have
Yeah,
seen all that before it even happened. Yes.
yeah. I even have a book from the 1800s, and it's called 11/9,
Hmm.
and it's about an attack on Manhattan using a hot air balloon laden with explosives.
Oh,
Okay,
wow. That
so
sounds
yeah,
like Nostradamus type stuff to me.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
totally.
Yeah.
In other words, it's been predicted by various people, and
Mm-hmm.
just like a lot of these like incursions of of your consciousness into the realm of what we call the occult, a lot of people do it unconsciously, and it's without control. Most people can't control whether or not they access it consciously or not. It just comes to them in, like, let's say, a dream or a momentary like vision, like an inkling,
Mhm.
or something that just looks right or looks probable.
Mm-hmm.
Especially after 1993, a lot of people were saying that New York City's going to be attacked. But that's not the only event that's been predicted in the past, like the killing of Lady Diana, World War II, the attack on Pearl Harbor. A lot of
Mm-hmm.
these major events were predicted in literature, books, and movies, books, movies, music of that era. So, and it's not necessarily a new concept, because, for example, if any of you people follow like Czechoslovakian magic like I do, one of the people that I follow is Bretislav Kafka, and he had his own version of it, or his own interpretation of it, called the protonation, which was basically just a different word for the Akashic records, where he saw it as an artifact of the what we now call the microtubules that are present in each individual neuron of the human brain. And nowadays, it is known to science that the microtubules inside the neurons are what actually holds the physical seat of our spiritual existence. Our consciousness resides in those microtubules. And when you take things like colloidal silver or colloidal gold or ormus, that actually lodges itself permanently in those microtubules. So, because these are conductive materials, that enables someone to more rapidly uncover or delve into or see into these Akashic records, whether those that are in the past, the ones in the future, or the ones in the present. The ones in the present are just as fascinating because you can gain an insight similar to that of remote viewing. So, a lot of this phenomenon that we call remote viewing could just be like a looking into uh, the Akashic records. It might not necessarily be what we think it is, like ESP or remote viewing, or one of these so-called clairs, clairvoyance,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
clairaudience, that sort of thing. So yeah, that's kind of my take on the Akashic records.
Hmm.
And to a lesser degree, it ties in with the very modern phenomenon that we know as the Mandela effect, where a lot of people have said that they're seeing into the alternative timelines of the past, where they have
Mm-hmm.
different recollections of popular culture things like titles of movies, titles of TV shows, that sort of thing, that are shared by like a large portion of the population. And where if it was simple misremembering, you would have that down to maybe 1% of the population misremembering, but having like 30% of the population misremember something the same exact way, well,
Hmm.
that shows you that there's something deeper going on, that these people are looking into a different set of Akashic records in the past, that at one point in the past, our timeline may have radically diverged, where the vast majority of humanity went on one timeline, and uh, like the other part of humanity went on a different timeline, and somehow they coexist in the same time and space. We
Hmm.
just don't know how. So
Maybe your record isn't completely written or set in stone until you've actually lived that lifetime. But then you got to think
yeah.
about the stacked lifetimes. How does
hmm
that work if everything
hmm
is stacked on top of itself? Dolores Cannon talked about the Akashic records being more like a large tapestry, and each one of us has a string in that tapestry.
yeah,
That was interesting.
that's a good
And
comparison.
and also when I'm in my sessions with my guide, I distinctly remembered a situation where he had said something to me about a timeline shifting. And I said, "Wait a minute, what are you talking about? A timeline?" He said, "Well, there's three possible timelines for you in this particular." This was a couple of years ago. "There's three particular timelines. We're not quite sure which one you're going to go with or how that's going to flow." And I thought that was fascinating because that meant that there were free will choices and which ones was I going to choose to get to that spot. And they could tell me the probable one, but until it actually occurred and happened, again, it wasn't really set quite
Yeah,
yet. The other thing that was interesting that you talked about, the Kafka deal.
yeah,
um, as I was speaking to my guides, I was told that your soul resides in the pineal gland, and that when your body leaves, or when your soul leaves your body, that pineal gland holds all memory that your brain has acquired in that body. Because, of course, once you drop the body, you're dropping the physical matter, but that would be the one way that your soul would come into the body and actually leave the body and take what it has learned in that lifetime. So I thought that was fascinating as well, because that kind of stretched my beliefs on like where your soul resides in the body.
well, yeah, that could be like a technical differentiation between the soul and the spirit. While I do agree that a large portion of the soul and or spirit, whichever one it's applicable to, resides in the pineal gland, I
Hmm.
do also feel that a lot of it resides in those microtubules, which are distributed throughout the whole entire brain.
Hmm. Kind of
And
like
it
a
doesn't.
computer taking the memory from the computer.
Sure, yeah, because
No matter where
it's
it's held, it downloads to that pineal gland, and then that's my understanding through my guides. I
mhm.
don't know for sure.
and, and typical human has both a spirit and a soul, and as I may have said before, in my language, it's the same word for spirit
Hmm.
and soul. It's just the
So,
masculine version of the
hmm.
same word and a feminine version of the same word for soul.
Mm.
And
So, in my understanding is your soul is the infinite aspect of you that goes on forever. It's infinite. The
same
the
with the spirit.
spirit is what you come in with. Your spirit is like the spirit of all your past lifetimes, that your gifts and talents and things that you can do, and what you're learning. That's the spirit part of the human experience, but the soul is the infinite aspect of you that lives on forever. So I believe there is a differentiation between the two.
There is, because also the word for spirit is the same as the word for ghost.
Mm.
So
Mm-hmm.
that kind of puts a better spin on it.
Geist.
But
Yep.
yeah, Geist.
Mm-hmm.
Most people have never heard of Bretislav Kafka, not to be confused with Franz Kafka, because one
Mm.
of the other top Czechoslovakian magicians was Franz Barden. And
Hmm.
Franz Barden and Bretislav Kafka lived at the same time, roughly. Bretislav Kafka, his claim to fame was he was a stone sculptor. He made statues. He also made altar pieces for the church and stuff like that. But he delved into psychology and he studied hypnotism, and he was able to hypnotize people into manifesting psychic, what we would now call psychic powers or extrasensory perception, or extraordinary feats of strength, agility, things that they normally didn't have in their waking consciousness. And he was able to manifest these things in front of like whole amphitheaters, like in a university lecture hall, in front of hundreds of witnesses. So back in the 1920s in
Hmm.
Czechoslovakia. So this was kind of a revolutionary thing, and I was by fortune of circumstance, I was able to get a typewritten bound copy of his of his book, Basis of Experimental Psychology. That's also signed by him with the letter to his publisher. See,
Hmm.
signed.
Wow.
Yeah,
Fascinating.
yeah, this was the ninth edition published that was supposed to be published in 1946. So this would be like what they call in the book business the advanced reader's copy, advanced
Wow.
reading copy. Except
Wow.
somebody had it bound in a hardcover.
That's interesting. Fascinating.
So yeah, so
Hmm.
that's worth quite a bit of money. Yeah,
Awesome.
because he would be like the equivalent of Aleister Crowley.
Huh.
Yeah,
Wow.
Hmm.
and
How about you, Teresa? What's your understanding of the Akashic records? We were talking a bit before we came on, and I thought what you had to say was fascinating. What's your take?
Well, well, first of all, I'd like to start with soul versus spirit,
Okay.
and then I'll jump into. Um, I think your soul. I'm like Lori. I see a differentiation between the two, um, and what my guides and my experience have led me to believe thus far is that your soul addresses or speaks about your inner life in relation to your own experience, um, your mind, your heart, space, your will, your free will, your imagination and creativity.
Hmm.
I see that as the soul that grows and expands from lifetime to lifetime, whereas spirit was kind of like the starting point of our energy of existence as a fractal of the all that is. And so the spirit speaks of the same inner life functions, um, it's but it addresses more. It's related more directly to source itself, to
You mean like a direct connect?
like faith, hope,
Okay. Okay.
love,
Hmm.
the essence of the Almighty, the all encompassing consciousness. So, spirit is your spark, your energy that was created, and then the soul envelops that
Hmm.
and carries it on. They go and they work in tandem. The body is the vessel that grounds it to this earthly plane and helps it to get from point A to point B. But the soul itself is like your blanket that
Hmm.
grows and expands over
Hmm. All
multiple
encompassing.
time, all encompassing through all
Hmm.
timelines. So that's the difference between the two to me. Now,
Okay.
the Akashic record you were
Hmm.
referring to was what I was reading that I read to you.
Hmm.
Um, that some people perceive it to be a multi. Let me see if I can bring it up. It's a what is the purpose of the Akashic record? We were talking about that, and I like this definition, and I believe it's true. It's multi-purpose, as Dalibor was saying, because we were talking about that, Dalibor and I, before the show.
mhm.
Is it's a tool used
Hmm.
by anyone,
Hmm.
especially psychic mediums or those who have gifts that they can tap in to these records and help you with, through tarot readings, psychic readings, past life regressions, soul record retrieval. It's a tool. The Akashic Record is there for us to tap into. It's multi-purpose. It can provide an understanding and many times guidance, which can be really healing, but ultimately it elevates someone's vibration to a point and a place where they can reconnect with their own soul level truths. So when we talk about our guides or our angels, and we've talked before, and I've perceived them as higher versions of ourselves through many epochs and experiences. So when we're tapping into them, that's part of the record. They are like a video script of the record of all of our memories and experiences.
Yeah, the pure consciousness and pure record of like your soul and your spirit, devoid of what I call the consensus reality application protocol, or CRAP.
Right.
CRAP. Yeah, which is your enculturation.
Crap-free.
That's and the CRAP, that's like your culture, your race,
Yeah.
your nationality, your language, the place you grew up. That's not part of your spirit or your soul. That's just the crap, the consensual reality application protocol.
Now, there
And
is one area that I differ from the two of you of what you've been talking about so far. And I haven't made up my mind yet, but where I am right now with it in my development, and I'm sure it will change as many things do over time, but I don't believe in predestiny to the
I
extent
don't
that
either. No.
everything we've ever intend to experience is already written in the books somewhere, and we simply choose the elements of it. Because that, to me, mitigates against free will. And free will is about creativity. It's about creating your experience and how you act or make choices based on navigation of the experiences. And whatever you do, think, feel, or do with regards to that gets recorded in these records, is my understanding. So if I have chosen to go down this path, that record gets written. If I choose to change my path, more records get added.
Yeah.
What I don't believe is that those records already exist somewhere, and they are being tapped into, and a psychic can use it as a crystal ball to foretell my future. Because there is no psychic reading I've ever had that has ever come true. And I've had 2 or 3 on this show alone from various different well-intended psychics that have never come true. Because circumstances and events I reacted to in ways that served my purpose or for choice.
And that circumvented those readings. Yeah.
It circumvented those. And so I don't believe they came from the Akashic Record because they hadn't been created yet and I hadn't chosen them yet. But that's just where I'm thinking right now. It doesn't mean I won't change my mind. It's just that that's where I'm at right now with my understanding of how Akashic Records work.
Because you didn't plan those circumstances out that deeply in advance, unlike something major like, let's say, 9/11, which was planned out 33 years in advance.
Right. So I don't believe that 9/11, even if it was foretold as a future, I think that's a true psychic intuition about circumstances and events that may be possible in a certain situation. And so that becomes a truth once it actually happens. But I don't believe that was an Akashic record that Nostradamus tapped into or anybody else. Because it hadn't happened yet, so it wasn't in the record yet.
It wasn't, World Trade Center wasn't built when Nostradamus was around. I get that, yeah. But I think that, at least 33 years in advance, it was known that this would happen because they built it that way. It was planned from the get-go.
Yeah, now see, that could very well be. That it's not that it's a record of something that's happened, but it was a planned manifestation.
Yeah. Exactly. There was no alternative. It was
planted in the seeds of thought, and it was talked about and acted on and became a reality. That I get. That's creation. Sorry, Brian, you were going to say something? I'm sorry. I thought I saw his lips move.
No, I was just listening.
Yeah, so I did want to go to Brian and ask him his opinion of it. And before we do that, I just want to make it very clear that we're all here searching for answers. What
Yeah,
resonates
yeah,
for some doesn't
Hmm.
resonate for all. And we're just simply putting it out there. We're
yeah,
discovering things, we're sharing what we're learning. So,
right.
we're on a learning curve too. So,
Hmm.
the things that we're saying is not what you
Yeah,
believe is your truth. So what
yeah,
resonates with you, take it. If it doesn't, throw it out, figure it out for yourself. But you're here to figure it out on your own.
yeah.
I
I'm not
Oh,
love
an
what
what
they said.
authority. I'm not
I
an
love.
authority on anything.
Oh,
What?
oh, I like it. You may have already put it up when I was out of the room, but I love what Lucky was saying.
I asked God, what is the meaning of life? He told me life is a journey to find the answers, not to be told the answers. Now get off my lawn and figure it out yourself.
Hmm.
Cute.
Yeah.
That's really cute. Yeah, that's
I like that.
basically that's what we're trying to say here.
Yeah,
Hmm.
Um,
yeah.
yeah. Anyway, cool. So, Grandpa Brian, what is the Akashic Records to you? What's your understanding of it? I'm very curious to hear what you have to say. I know there is a delay, and we will wait for you to respond.
Hey, Brian, did you
That's
get
a
that from
long.
Lori?
That's a long.
Yeah, he only has it when he comes into the stream.
Woo!
Wow.
I think it's a
Hmm.
StreamYard issue.
Man, I tell
Yeah.
you. Mm.
Is Grandpa Brian frozen?
No, I can see
No,
him
he's
blinking.
moving. He's moving.
Can you
No,
hear us, Brian?
maybe he can't hear us.
Brian, can you hear us?
To me, it's a knowledge of everything that's happened, not only in our lives, but throughout the universe, galaxy, whatever you want to call it. It's knowledge of all. It is a very important part of our lives. It is very important that we access these Akashic records. Uh, it came to me earlier. Basically, people call this a prison planet. And I think accessing the Akashic records, how we break free of this planet, is by recognizing karmic debt and karmic cycle through these Akashic records. And yes, no,
It's hard to say anything because there's such a lag.
Yeah, it's like a
Wow.
minute or 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Hey,
he's
Robert V,
moved.
good to see you. Way Soul Tribe, what's up? Good to have
Hey,
you here.
Robert.
Right on. Yeah. Well, um, it's funny because Dolores Cannon had a connection with Nostradamus, and he was deathly afraid to be discovered for his abilities in his time because
Mm-hmm.
they would
Mm-hmm.
basically, um,
They would have,
they
yeah,
burn you at the stake, dismember you, whatever they could do to you out of fear. And she was able to extract a lot of his. She wrote a book, I think 2 books about it, describing what he was going through and explaining a lot of the future happenings. So she was able to kind of corroborate some of that stuff, which I found fascinating. But that's kind of
well, yeah,
interesting.
Nostradamus lived a tough life because he was born and died during the Great Plagues, basically,
Hmm.
that hit Europe. And as a matter of fact, that the plague actually killed his entire family. He was the only survivor. And at that time, people were very superstitious because they didn't know what caused the plague. And plus, on top of everything, he was Jewish. So, he was kind of in a precarious situation. So he didn't want to necessarily publicize his abilities to access these, but he was going about it in the same way that Kafka would have, because he was using self hypnosis. he was actually putting himself into sort of like an alpha state trance because he was looking at like a bowl of water and illuminated only by a candle in the darkness. And he was seeing all these different things in there. And of course, he couldn't make head nor tails of it because he was basically living in what, the 16th century, and he was seeing modern skyscrapers, aircraft, computers, that sort of thing, and he didn't know how to interpret that. So he
Mm-hmm.
naturally put it in his own words of that time, just like the authors of the various books of the Bible did.
Yeah.
Using terms like wheel within wheel, or sky cart, or things like that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's fascinating. We do have a question from Gogo. Hi, Gogo. It's good to see you. Thanks for being here. I have a question for the whole Andromeda 7 team. Why do you think for fallen angels and demonic beings, the earth is a punishment, and for humans, it is the other way around? That is paradise. Hmm.
Well,
I
I don't think
don't. I
I
don't
I
Yeah.
think that. I.
Go
I
ahead.
don't think that the fallen angels or demonic beings are actually physically contained within the earth, and I don't believe that any of us are necessarily fallen beings on a punishment planet. I think those energies that have come from people following a certain impulse, cycle after cycle after cycle, that have led to a series of choices that caused them to behave in certain ways that break natural law. I believe in the Theosophical Society's explanation of that, and as well as the anthroposophy perspective on that they're contained in a shell that's an image mirror of Earth itself. They're in something called the eighth sphere. And that's what Rudolf Steiner was talking about. Never did he say that the Earth was a prison planet, and never did he say that fallen spirits and fallen angels and all that are here with us as a form of being trapped within prison. In fact, it's the opposite. It's a school where we experience things to learn and grow and have initiations. We weren't put here or trapped here against our wills. And I believe that.
I
But
do too.
I do believe there's this eighth sphere.
Mm-hmm.
It's the best explanation. It's equivalent to what our concept of a hell is like, a
Mm-hmm.
heaven and a hell. It's a realm that coexists and parallels Earth, and all of those harmonic spirits are there and trapped there because they've created that for themselves. They've separated from and chosen to go against natural law and do no harm and things like that. So, and they're the feeders that feed on our emotions and try to evolve us into robots and transhumanism and all of that. So,
Mm-hmm.
I hope that answers your question, Gogo. That's what I believe, and that's what
Yeah.
I've been shown, and
Yep.
that's been my experiences
You have the
with
free
certain
will to choose your
situations.
experience. You have the free
Hmm.
will to choose your experience, good or bad, right or wrong, however you want to make it. You're responsible for it. And of course, your promises, your commitment to other souls that come in and want to learn as well.
Yeah.
This is the Earth School. And if you want to be in that dense, um, uh,
see.
negative environment, if you want to live in that, then for me, that's a choice. I don't go there. I don't even think about it. I don't have any concept of demonic anything because it doesn't even come into my knowing or my perspective. That's
Bingo,
my
Lucky.
personal. Yeah.
See,
Yeah,
that's
and
Yeah.
see.
bingo,
Here's the
Lucky. Yeah.
Hmm.
Go ahead,
We make our
Delvin.
reality. We live in a paradise or a prison, depending on your own perspective. We are all just prisoners here by our own device. It's all up to you. Absolutely. I agree
sure.
with that.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Sure, but
Yep.
see, let me clarify this.
Okay.
These evil or demonic entities or forces of evil, they're here just as a counterpoint to all the forces of good that we have here. And what do I define as evil? Well, evil is anything that's destructive. What's good? Anything that creates, anything that's creative is good.
Mhm.
Anything that's
Mhm.
destructive is bad.
Mhm.
Yeah. So.
It's here as a counterpoint, so we don't get
Mhm.
lazy. But it's not a.
Yes.
I can see why people would say that it's a prison planet because it sure
Sure,
seems
it's
that
an
way.
easy
Because
out.
also our because our perception, our IQ has increased, our perception has increased because of the internet and social interactions and stuff like that. So we're perceiving more of the negative that's out there. But in reality, if you just go by objective reality, our lives have become so much better in just the time that has elapsed since our birth, since my birth in 1968. What would I want to live back in 1968? No. Life, just a couple of decades ago sucked really bad. I mean,
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
go
Mhm.
back to the
Mhm.
1800s, life was cheap.
Yeah.
Lives were short, and
Mhm.
if you wanted to have 28 degrees in your room, you'd have to go outside and chop some wood and bring it up here and burn it
Yeah.
in your
Yeah. Yeah.
stove.
Yeah.
True.
You know,
True.
you had so much work to do just to stay alive. You had no time for like pursuing the higher things in life, like literature, reading, movies, interacting with your friends, stuff like that. You had no
Mhm.
time for that.
Mhm. Teresa, go ahead. You want to make a comment? Go ahead.
Um, I just wanted to get back to Gogo. He said he was referring to what Scripture said of the biblical teachings, and when I studied the Hebrew versus the Greek translation, they're talking about the abyss, not inner earth, not the physical plane of earth as we know it, and what many have interpreted as inner earth. Um, the abyss is that place of darkness and isolation, that cut off parallel that I was talking about, which in theosophy and anthroposophy they refer to as the eighth sphere. It's an energetic environment, and there's cast off angels and demonics and all these deformed experimental life forms. Those who didn't pass their initiations and cut themselves off from light and love and truth have ended up there in
Mhm.
this place. Um,
Mhm.
and it's referred to in the Bible as the abyss or hell.
Mhm.
And they talk about humans going to hell for committing adultery or breaking certain laws and the Ten Commandments and
To
so forth. And
control. Mhm.
yeah, as a
Hmm.
control mechanism. And
Mhm.
so there's been a lot of twisting and altering of original scripture and teaching. If you go back to the Aramaic and Hebrew translations directly into English without the Vulgate and all those other different twists and turns, they're talking about uh, this area of energy where where that energy is trapped. Now, they're trapped in terms of ascension. They're not trapped in terms of their ability to interfere with you or
Mhm.
to come in and try to oppress you or possess you or influence your thoughts. Go ahead.
As an interesting aside, do you know where that eight comes from?
No, go ahead.
No, it's very
Infinity.
interesting. No, no, no. It's Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars,
Oh, yes, the
Saturn,
eight bodies.
Jupiter,
Yes,
Neptune, Pluto. That's
yes,
where the eighth sphere
yes,
comes from. Yeah,
yes,
that's.
Yeah, the
yeah,
eighth
But
sphere.
that's
Yeah.
also
yeah.
interesting because he was writing about the eighth sphere way before Pluto was discovered.
Yes, I know. Hmm.
Mhm.
So that's
Hmm.
another like glimpse into the Akashic record that he manifested right there.
Well, he does talk about the different entities and bodies that interacted with the
And Pluto is the
creation
god
of.
of the underworld, I should point out.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
But he does talk about all of these other beings of creation that interacted and contributed to the development of humans from the beginning of Lemuria into our actual human form in early Atlantean periods. He talks about that and
And
how
Gigi
our
Hmm.
Young talks
spirits
about that as well.
all the
For
time.
sure.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah.
yeah.
Mhm.
So it's
Hmm.
it's one of the best because it's a combination of it is esotericism, it's spiritual science as we know it today, and it is a form of Gnosticism that comes as close to anything I've ever heard that explains my understanding of things. And
See,
so,
yeah, what
Hmm.
Steiner and what Gigi Young are really talking about is a pre anti I should say antediluvian pre-Atlantis civilization that was super advanced,
Yeah.
that collapsed due to some kind of a natural catastrophe on this planet, and only remnants of it survived in different areas of Earth.
Yeah.
A small pocket here, a small pocket there, and each of these developed independently.
Mhm.
And so now, our populations have gone up, and we've reestablished global communications. That's why you see different people from this part of the world look differently than these people from a different part of the world, and so on and so forth.
Mhm. Mhm.
Because each of these like grew up out of just a handful of individuals that were stuck not knowing about the existence of the others.
Mhm.
So
It said that part of them went to Egypt, and
yeah,
some of the uh,
they were all
uh,
over the place.
Arabic countries and things like that as well. They were split up all over the
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
place, and then they just kind of reinvented themselves. Um, yeah,
Yeah,
fascinating. Yeah, if you guys ever get a chance, check out Gigi Young's channel. She is top level, top shelf
Yeah.
spiritual scientist. In my opinion, she is amazing and very knowledgeable. She's been on YouTube for I think over 10 years.
Yeah, and
Amazing
she's very,
content.
very. She gets on there with Dark Journalist too. She
Mm-hmm.
and Dark Journalist have a really good relationship, and
Hmm.
they get on
hmm
together and talk about the different spheres and the different uh,
Yeah, it's absolutely
energies.
fascinating. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and speaking of Steiner and like Ahriman, it's also interesting that in his depictions of Ahriman, he looks just like Lenin. Ever notice that?
Yeah. Yeah. A little bit. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So the Akashic Records, Lori, the importance of them. Why are they important?
Well, if you can tap into it, that's the whole thing. If you can clear your mind, tap into it, and then not only tapping into it, but also being able to trust the information that you're getting. Very similar to what you and I experienced when I was being shown images through your mother, and I
Yes.
gave you some information about things that you would only know. And for me, it was kind of a clear cognizant. I just had a knowing, and I felt like I was connected to. I'm not sure if I was connected to the Akashic Records, if I was reading it from there, or if I was really getting it from her. So it is very difficult. It's very difficult to determine, and how do you trust it? That's the thing. In a sense, when you have a memory, like think about something you did when you were, let's say 11, 12 years old, and you go back in your mind, is that not maybe connecting
Mm,
to the Akashic Records? Would that not qualify as part of your history and the actual
hmm.
Akashic Records?
Well,
Sure.
if it's a significant event, it'll show up in your aura.
Mm, yeah.
Well, here's
So,
here's
Yep.
the importance of it to me. Okay. Because people say, why do you people even talk about this, and why is it
Hmm.
so all fired important?
Hmm.
I was
Well, it
struggling
exists.
with. I
We do
was
know
I was
that.
struggling. Yeah. Yep. I was struggling through some past trauma, and I was in a frame of mind where I couldn't move forward, couldn't let it go, didn't know why it was bothering me. And so so there was a definite karmic activity that I needed to understand to clear up for my own mental health, my own happiness, my own well-being, choices I make moving forward.
Karmic clear up. Yep.
And I didn't realize to what extent.
Hmm.
And something got Lori's attention. I didn't go to her and say, "Will you help me with this?" She
Mm-mm.
was talking to me and something came through. Now, the spirit, I believe, of my mother came through. But that spirit or soul, if you will,
It was
um,
doesn't matter.
it
I
was a
think,
memory.
put it to you this way.
Hmm.
Here's how I envision the Akashic library, as they call it. You know how department stores and hotels have revolving doors that are always spinning.
Yeah,
And you
turnstile.
want to get in, you want to get into the turnstile, and you jump in and you know, and
Yeah.
you spin around. So
Mhm.
they're always spinning and they're always available for someone to jump into. And then when you go in there, like any other library,
Mhm.
you have books, videotapes, microfilm. You might have artifacts, newspapers. There's
Mhm.
multiple media in a library. Okay. So, how do we know that those that have passed on and ascended that aren't necessarily reincarnated, or maybe fractals of them are still retained on microfiche or some type of video audio file?
Hmm.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
Lori is trying to help me, and she's tapping into that spirit, and she's directed into that library, and that library is providing her with those memories. And so she's sitting here telling me what my mom wore was right, perfect, what my dad was doing in the kitchen, what
Mhm.
the location of the screen door, how I was upsetting them as I was going through the screen, the details that were theirs. Nobody could ever know unless they had seen that video. And it's my memory, not hers. And we're not even in the same family.
I can
We're in
tell you.
different parts of the country. So
Yeah,
go
yes,
ahead.
exactly. I can tell you that it was from your mother's perspective
Uh-huh. Yeah,
because
yes, and everything
it
the
was
way she spoke.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
Right down to arguing with your dad sitting at the table, you coming through the screen door, slamming it, her upset, arguing back and forth. I mean, I saw the whole thing. I
Yeah.
saw what she was wearing, and that was mind blowing for me to have you confirm that that was correct
Yeah,
because
cuz
no one else would know that. For
nicknames,
me, that was
yeah.
proof
Yeah.
of
Yeah.
it being real. Yeah.
Mhm.
That's why it's so important to connect with like-minded people so that you can
Yeah.
share these things. That is really, really important because
And
without
also to
that
get to,
support,
and also
go
that
ahead.
feedback. The
Yeah,
feedback
yeah.
is important.
It's so
The
like,
feedback was important. So what I got from that, you guys, is I was able to understand why those two were having the dynamics they were having, why I was caught in the middle as a child, and how that, so it flipped my whole perspective. It gave
mhm,
me compassion for, instead of resentment, and instead of feeling like I was the victim, instead of feeling like I was to blame or was the way I am with certain things because of that, it helped me to flip my whole script, my whole perspective on the dynamics, and so I could heal.
mhm,
now
mhm.
I can now I can communicate with my
Because
mom.
you basically saw the truth. Yeah, and now you're able to connect
Right.
directly to her. You don't need me.
Yeah. In
Yeah.
other words, you access the software copy of the Akashic Records. And I would make that distinction for one simple reason that Edgar Casey also made references to the Hall of Records, which was
Yeah.
somewhere in Giza. And that would be kind of like the hardware version, the printout of the Akashic Records that's
Sure.
stored
Yeah. Yeah.
somewhere in
Hmm.
like a central server
The
somewhere in the
physical
Giza
copy, you
Plateau.
mean, Delabor?
Yeah, like a
Physical?
Yeah.
physical,
Wouldn't
Yeah.
sort
that
of like
be
a
a
physical
trip if
copy.
you could go to that and actually pull yourself up and just see your whole life and go,
I
holy
think
crap?
I think it
Wouldn't,
exists. Yeah,
yeah.
I think it exists. I think there's got to be like a central server, and it's located close to the Great Pyramid, where you can access everything that's happened. Not necessarily everything that will happen because we
You're
have
talking
free
about
will.
hard copy.
Yeah, well, hard copy in the form of like a server.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So
Like a hardware
Like
okay. Well,
version.
stored.
a hardware version. Okay. I would
Yeah,
say
Yeah.
yeah, like a supercomputer,
yeah,
Uh-huh.
because let's face it, how many billion of people are in the world right now?
8 billion.
Okay. So if you go back and if you go through all the different timelines, there's trillions. So
No,
so
no, not
to
necessarily. You
have
know why?
everything ever thought, written, everything ever thought,
So your point
said,
is you couldn't possibly hold a physical
it's
record of
infinite.
everything.
It's
Yeah.
infinite.
Yeah, I think. Well, I think you could. You
Hmm.
know why? Because the fact
Hmm.
that we have 8 billion people doesn't mean that okay, we didn't have 8 billion people 100 years ago. As a matter of fact, the number of
No.
people around today is greater than the number of people that are
Oh,
ever lived.
absolutely. Absolutely.
So
Yeah, that's true.
We started
so
out with 2.
yeah, we started out with 2. Yeah,
Well,
or
I
1.
anyway.
No, I don't believe
Depends
that,
on
but
who you
okay.
believe.
Yeah, I don't believe that.
Yeah.
I was just being funny.
No, it is funny.
I was just being funny. But no, the point I'm making is that there might be um, it would like be having the not only the birth and death records, the medical records, everything that everybody's ever done,
Hmm.
every
Well, see,
person, every
and
human
now,
over time. It'd just be near
what if?
impossible to capture all that.
What
Well, look at
if?
census
Just
records now. I mean, you can tell when
sure.
somebody lived, hundreds of years ago through a census
Okay.
record.
Now, what if? What
Hmm.
if that's this supercomputer, this whole of records in Egypt?
Hmm.
What if you can like file a FOIA request? And what if the clues to how to do that are in those texts that have not yet been deciphered on the walls of some of these temples?
Hmm.
Uh, because they haven't
Yes,
deciphered every
Chloe.
single one of them.
All right, Chloe. We this is exactly what Kafka
Hmm.
Yeah,
was
Kafka.
saying.
Yeah.
Hmm.
This is what he's saying, and this is
Hmm.
what Lori and I were discussing before the show. She thinks it's the pineal gland. Kafka was talking about the neurons, the nerve endings, the microtubules.
Hmm.
Yeah. The
So
Esplana.
within the human body, we are the hardware, we are the server,
Hmm.
and then those records get written to the cloud.
Right.
Just as we have the
Hmm.
internet cloud,
Or
we
the
have the
black
etheric
box.
cloud.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well, what if?
yes,
So that would be like a backup copy.
yes. But it's
Yeah.
with the soul, it's the soul that comes into us. Their memory is wiped. They don't have access to all the records right away because
Hmm.
they
You wouldn't be able to focus on this life if you knew every
right,
lifetime you ever had. That would
Yeah.
make
right.
things really complicated, wouldn't it?
But
Yeah.
Lori's going to tell us in a little bit about how through a certain incantation or prayer, you yourself can open the record through meditation and get at certain bits of information that you need. Then that gets downloaded into your human body, into your pineal gland, and into those neurons, so that we have those memories to work with and grow from and move on. And then anything else we do then gets uploaded to the cloud. It's just
Hmm.
using modern
Really.
day computer terminology to
Hmm.
explain it, but that's basically what's happening. Go
I,
ahead,
I
Lori.
think it's important to understand that if you want to access the Akashic Records or anything that has to do with your past or your future or any of that stuff, you've got to be able to meditate. You have to clear your mind. You can't have any negative emotions or energy. You've got to have a pure heart, and you've got to come from a heart space, not a head space, but a heart space. And if you can do that, you're going to have a really good opportunity to do that with
Uh,
no expectations, no, putting anything out there of, and then you have to be able to trust it. And with validation comes the trust. And once you're validated a couple times, it does make things a lot easier to believe and understand the information that you're getting.
Trying something different here.
That was smart, actually.
that's good. Good
Brilliant.
move.
You
Yeah.
are brilliant.
So am I on a delay now?
You're fine. Keep going. You're good.
Yeah, I don't know what was going on earlier. You guys were just all whacked out, and now I think I caught back up.
Hmm.
And it's important to go to the Akashic Records, especially about your past lives, because
Mhm.
I think it's important that you need to clear up karmic cycles and karmic debt. I think that's what's going to help us move forward. And like you said, come like Reiki energy. Reiki energy doesn't work if you're not coming from a heart space. It's not about the mind. It's all about the heart when helping. And the same way with the Akashic Records. It's all about coming from the heart. The heart is the biggest energy producer that we have in the body.
Hmm.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
it has to come. Everything has to come from the heart, because you can think something, but it doesn't mean it comes from the heart. When you come from the heart, it's pure.
Yeah. Beloved Abstract has a comment here. The Akashic Record is something other than the self, so it's on the outside.
Okay.
Sort of.
Yeah. So I would like to. Let me
Oh, go. You go.
let,
Go.
let me
I
let
know
me
what
go
you're
with
going to
this
say.
one.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Go for it.
I believe that the Akashic Record is not necessarily on the outside of self, because all versions of our higher self are written into that record. We are the energy of that record. We work in tandem. So when I said the answer is yes and no, beloved, I feel that we are energetically part of that record, that the record's not just what we in human terms think of as a journal or a hard drive where we're recording data. I believe it's energetic. And so it has the life. It's like the living, breathing word. And so it's our soul essence. And all of our higher versions of self are in those records. So they're really not outside of us. They're in the ether. They're outside of the human body, but
They're
they're
in the
not
cloud.
outside of. They're in the cloud,
The cloud,
Mm-hmm.
because don't forget, in the
the
Bible,
spirit
the,
cloud.
the the
Yeah.
Israelites, when they were wandering for
Blah.
40 years, they were following either a pillar of fire or
Yeah.
a
I like
cloud that
what
moved around.
Yeah, I like what Chloe said here. I've been to the library in the ether. I used to get there by intent meditation, but
Mhm.
unsure it was the Akashic. When speaking to another about it, they said it was like a train station. I think that's a good way
Yes,
to put it.
That's a good way to
Yeah.
put
Huh.
it. Yeah.
Yep.
the train
Hmm.
station. Yeah,
I
hmm
like that.
Hmm.
yeah, it's a train station. I had a vivid dream about a train station yesterday. As a matter of fact, it was weird.
Really? Really?
Yeah.
What happened?
Mm. Well,
What happened?
it's like pages and pages long. I wrote it down.
Oh,
I'll
wow.
send it to you. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Cool.
hmm
Huh.
I have
And
something
Is your
here.
it's
train your
interesting.
spiritual vehicle?
No, no, but it's interesting that this was the first time that I had a dream that featured John from Max Vision Remote Viewing as like the dominant person in it, which was very interesting. So I sent it
Wow.
to
Wow.
him, and in it, I he said you got to go deeper because at some point it was like a lucid dream,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him about it. He's like, well, to find a real meaning, you have to go deeper. And instead of going deeper into the meaning of the dream, I went deeper into his notes that he had in front of him. And in his
Wow.
notes, he had like a lot of people that I knew and like the companies that they worked for. And under me, he had like some of the companies that I used to work for and my current company, which was called the 454 Report. I'm like, what is that? So
Train 454.
I looked up 454 Report, and the first result that I got
All
on
aboard.
Yandex
All
on
Woo-hoo!
aboard Amtrak.
Yandex was a document about like the human aspect of engineering applications. Like
Hmm.
how do you account for like the human factor in engineering applications in the oil and gas sector? I'm
Hmm.
like, wait a minute, this is just so
Wow, Dalibor.
out of left field,
Whoa.
But
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
mhm,
Amazing. And you have how many
mhm.
pages? 4 pages of
Yeah, of the
dream?
dream. Yeah,
Fascinating. Fascinating.
yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
When I
Chloe
was
says,
doing.
oh, I'm sorry, real quick. I remember this huge podium in the library, and I would say with about 30 feet tall and a wing being sat there. Yes, there are guardians
Guardians.
of those records. Yep,
Hmm.
they're there
Hmm.
to assist and also to protect those records as well. Interesting. Cool.
I like this definition that one of our references was giving to the benefits of the Akashic Record. And they said not only recognizing your deep connection with all living beings, but it can having access through them can influence the very fabric of existence with your mind.
Yeah,
What do you
that's
think they mean by
psychokinesis.
that?
Um,
Uh-huh.
we have someone, Lori Jerome. Hi, Lori. Glad to have you here. So she said, so if you know what is going to happen in the future, can you change it for something better? What do you think, Teresa? What do you think?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think that,
Yep.
okay, so I've been given probably 8 different versions of my future. Um, and I believe that I, through free will choice, will eventually choose one of those versions. Or I might decide to combine a couple versions into a new truth and say, hey, that's
See,
going to be the
I would
path.
Mm,
say you have to perfect the ability to exercise will. And the easiest way to do that is by exercising your psychokinetic abilities.
Yep.
It is easier than you think, much easier.
mm,
And after a while, you're going to get bored of it. And the easiest way is by just influencing clouds. If you
mm-hmm,
take your finger like this and you imagine a laser beam coming up out of a cloud and poking a hole
Yeah.
in it, anyone can do that. And once you've proven to yourself that you can do that, and you can do it at will, then you can see, okay, yeah, then I really have become
so
a master
suggestion.
at exerting my own will.
Okay.
I just want to be clear about one thing, though. Okay,
Okay.
I don't believe, and I said it earlier, Lori
Mhm,
Jerome.
mhm,
I said it earlier in the show that I don't believe that anything about the future is actually written into the Akashic record because
mhm,
it hasn't happened yet. What I do believe is that we are given enough insight and intuition in consultation with all of our higher versions of self, guides, angels, loved ones that have moved on about us and who we are, that we're given visions of possibilities of our future timelines. And you look at all those possibilities and you go, oh, well, I could come back here and be an artist. I could go to Venus and teach classes. I could go to another solar system and create a beautiful home in the ether with waterfalls and caves. I could do whatever I choose to do. And if I can see those as possibilities, then anything is possible. So I can change right now what I'm going to do based on the choices that I make. That's what I meant to say. But I don't think
mhm.
it's that you're accessing the Akashic records to help you change the future or to use it like a crystal ball to read your future. I think it gives you enough information for you to pull into
More
your
about
memory
your
of
past
how you
lives to
evolved,
figure
where
out
you
what,
came from. Yeah,
yeah, what's been
your
going on, what your
purpose.
challenges are, what your purpose is. I think it's more
Yeah,
for that kind of a
yeah,
thing. Yeah, I agree. I
The
agree.
problem is that frequently we don't know what the best course of action is.
Uh
We
huh.
don't really
Right.
know what,
Hindsight.
yeah, we don't really know what's in our interest.
Mm-hmm.
And most people would make the same mistakes they made before if they could travel back in time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Except for
Yeah.
maybe some key differences where you know
Mm-hmm.
that, oh, this one little thing caused this bad
Well,
thing.
you made the best decisions you could make at the time.
Yeah.
You're here doing your very best.
Hmm.
Doesn't come with a manual. You forget. You don't have all that knowledge and information, and you're winging it basically. So we're all here doing the very best that we can, and that's all you can do.
Hmm.
Chapters, come and go, and once that chapter's closed, you close it and you move on. It's really
yeah,
that simple for me, the way I
Hmm.
see things. Otherwise, you live in the past, and that's no good either. So you rob yourself
Yeah.
of your future if you do that.
And then there's also it's also mindset. It's also
Hmm.
how you interpret things, because in a certain perspective you could argue that there really is nothing bad that's happened in your life because it's all served a higher purpose that's good.
here's a differentiation that one of the instructors gave for one of the programs I was looking into is you will receive only what is important for you now. A lot of people in the spiritual community are fascinated with past lives. Past lives are cool and all, but they aren't the purpose or point of this current life that you're living. So you may feel called to a certain time period and ask the Akashic Records information on a possible life at that time. But you
Hmm.
only receive the information that is important for you in this life
Hmm.
to know and to understand in this body at
Hmm.
this particular time.
Mhm.
The Akashic
Mhm.
Records only reveal to you what you need to learn in that moment to support you on your journey in the now. If you get some information about your future in this life, and then ask more questions about the specifics but don't receive anything additional, that's okay too.
Mhm.
Trust that what you're receiving is what you're meant to have right now. Sometimes we're not supposed to have all the answers at the same time.
Mhm.
This is what Lori and I have been finding out and exploring and discovering is that we're given, it's taken us, what, 3 years to get to where we are now.
Yeah.
And it's been pretty intense this past year. And it's because we're only
And 2
given,
years before I met you. So I've been
Mhm.
doing this for about 5 years, which is really not
yes,
that long, but
yeah,
I've learned a lot in 5 years. I've changed my entire life. The way I
yeah,
do everything has changed because of it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Fascinating discussion. Well, you guys, we are just a bit over an hour, so I would like to ask some final thoughts. Let's go with Grandpa Brian first. Teresa, if you can, final
Yeah.
thoughts for Grandpa Brian.
Okay, hang on.
Uh,
He's got
He's
you.
got it.
just be yourself. Uh, you know, do a past life regression if you think you need to see what maybe happened in a previous life to help you out in this life.
Mm.
We all have free will, and if you choose to uh, access the Akashic records, like you said, come from a heart space. Learn how to access the Akashic records. If it's something you're not interested in, then don't do it.
I like that. I like that. How
Very
about
good.
you, Dalibor? Final
Yeah,
thoughts?
yeah, I totally agree with Grandpa Brian because I personally have been regressed by a professional psychologist on 3 different occasions, and it was an eye-opening experience. It was my own glimpse into my own Akashic records
Hmm.
and their relevance to my life today.
Powerful. Powerful.
Yeah.
Awesome. How about you, Teresa? Any final thoughts?
I would tend to understand that past life regressions are, are beneficial for understanding things like karma or can explain why your character is the way it is or why you're having a relationship issue with somebody else. And yes, they're tapping into the Akashic records to get that information for sure. But I think the most powerful thing about an Akashic reading, when you sit down, empty your mind,
Hmm.
ground yourself, go into meditation, breathe, and just ask yourself for clarification on anything.
Mm-hmm.
Why am I being this way? Why am I feeling this way? Why am I acting this way? Why do I have such a hard time dealing with this type of person? Why can't I seem to make things work on this job? Why can't I seem to get my finances moving in a certain direction I need to get them moving into? The 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 keepers of that information, which are different versions of yourself and angelics who have volunteered to be there to assist you whenever you come in with those questions. Your guides might even come in there with you to help you interpret the information. But the bottom line is that the power of the Akashic records is to help give you personal guidance so that you can get a balance to see yourself in a different way or to see things from a different perspective. That's entirely different from a past life regression where you're trying to get some
Yeah.
historical information. Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
Hmm.
there's a reason for actually consciously going after the records, just as you would to go to the library to reach something. It's like doing a Google search on your soul purpose
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or doing a Google search on your truth.
Insight. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well, guys, this was a fascinating discussion. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Grandpa Brian, thank you for being here as always. You always show
Thank you.
up. Dalibor, so do you. I really love and appreciate
Yep.
you and all you have, yeah, all that you bring to the table. And of course, Teresa,
Thanks.
my bestie, love you so much. And it's an honor and
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to do this every week and to discuss it. So hopefully it helps, even if it just helps one person. We've done our part, and we are serving the light, so to speak. We are a value of the light. So anyway, thanks everybody for being in chat. Really appreciate everybody being here. Hi, Julianne. Good to see you. Deborah
No problem,
Sloan.
Lori. It was nice meeting you, Lori. Lori Jerome.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you next week, and watch for the trailer and you'll see what we'll be discussing. So
Yeah.
appreciate everybody being here. So much love. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Come from a heart space. Drop the negative. Think about your words before you speak. And much love to everyone. So peace and love to all. Peace and love. There it is. All right, guys. Bye-bye.
Love you all.